Yeah.
I've never recovered from finding out that the food pyramid was a scam.
Yeah.
That was just the degree to which that's a scam is, I don't know, is there a worse medical crime in history than that?
No, I mean, telling Americans to load up on 7 to 11 servings of grains every single day.
Yeah. And to find out that was a marketing ploy by the Department of Agriculture and that they went against the advice even of their own consultants who warned them that they would produce an epidemic of obesity and diabetes, which is, and not to say nothing of depression and dementia, which is exactly what we have now.
Exactly.
It's like, I don't know what you even do when you find out that that's true.
Yeah, and the unwarranted demonization of natural fat-containing foods, nutrient-dense foods like animal-sourced foods, which continue to be demonized.
Even by the American Diabetic, is it Association Society? I don't remember which
ADA,
one is still pushing the notion that, diabetics can eat carbohydrates. Like, actually, I don't think so. I don't think that's a very good idea since they're converted to sugar, for example.
And then they're essentially glucose intolerant, right? Like it's madness. And what that demonization of these like natural whole foods. I mean, we live in a time where 60% of the calories that your average American consumes comes from what are called ultra processed foods.
Right.
So the
center of the supermarket.
Exactly, the antithesis to whole foods, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that we're still demonizing whole foods to me is insane.
Yeah. And causes insanity too. So it's not just insane, it's a cause of insanity. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is not...
What do you think of RFK, just out of curiosity? Because I'm sorry, that's a non sequitur in a sense, but not exactly. Like, I've never seen another politician make an issue of health.
Yeah.
Right? Of general health at the level that we're discussing it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, COVID became an issue and public health is an issue, but Kennedy is the only candidate I've ever seen who's calling out the reprehensible, mostly corporate actors who are poisoning, everyone, fundamentally.
Yeah.
And
I think he's an incredibly important voice in that regard. And I hope that no matter what happens in November, I hope that he finds a way to continue his advocacy. I mean, I'm obviously, completely aligned with the notion that we do need to start doing things differently.
Well, what's the obesity? What's the percentage of Americans now who are obese?
By 2030, 1 in 2. And this is not just overweight. This is frank obesity.
Right. And so the morbidly obese will be 1 in 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. And obesity is a risk factor for...
everything.
Pretty much everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And...
and the cure isn't fat positivity. No, definitely not.
No. I mean, you can be more or less healthy at any given size, but it's less healthy to be obese than it is to be of normal weight.
I can understand the fat positive people in one way. I would say before I learned what I did learn about diet, I was never particularly judgmental about people who are obese. I did, I suppose, to some degree, accept the idea that fewer calories, a little more exercise, you lose weight. And perhaps that, would I say that some more willpower would be of use? I don't know if I ever really believed that because I dealt with people who had all sorts of different problems and reducing it to something like inadequate willpower. Yeah, you got to be very careful about doing such things. But now when I see obese people, I think it's really too bad that you're ill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a disease, and I feel a strong sense of empathy for them because, they're being gaslit, essentially.
That's for sure.
Because what you hear over and over again is this idea that all foods fit, there are no such thing as good foods or bad foods. And that might be true at a population health level, and there's no single food that's going to cause obesity in an individual, right? It's a dietary pattern of the typically involving the overconsumption of these ultra processed foods.
Well, you're more likely to overconsume the foods that are, what would you say, pathologically delicious.
Yeah.
Right. And they've been made pathologically delicious. The high sugar foods in particular. It's very difficult to resist them, and no wonder.
Yeah. There was a seminal NIH-funded study led by Kevin Hall, who's a highly regarded obesity researcher, who found that, when you give people an ultra-processed diet to consume and you tell them to eat to satiety. It's called ad libitum feeding in the literature. They end up consuming a calorie surplus of 500 additional calories. So you do that every single day for a week. That's a pound of fat gain every single week.
Right.
And conversely, when they gave them these minimally processed foods, they saw them eat to the same degree of satiety, fullness, but coming in effortlessly at a calorie deficit of about 300 calories. So that's an 800 calorie swing.
I wonder if that has anything to do with seasonality of grains. Because I'm curious, is our initial agricultural ancestors, especially in colder climates, it's like maybe you wanted to pack on an extra 20 pounds before winter hit, and so maybe that's an evolutionary adaptation to ensure that from September to December, let's say, that you took full advantage of the harvest so that if lean times come, it makes sense, because islanders who've been on islands for many, many generations are much more likely to become overweight on a North American diet. And you're much more likely to go through starvation periods on an island as a population. And so people who are very, either efficient in their metabolisms or perhaps liable to overeat in times of plenty would have been people who survived. So, because it's interesting, right? If there's a stable degree to which you'll overeat high calorie foods, that indicates that there's a reason for that. That's not just random.
Yeah.
So
it's an adaptive survival mechanism. Those of us who are the most adept at putting on and storing fat would make it through the famine of winter.
Yeah, the winter. Well, and you can see why that wouldn't happen in the case of animal products, because your cows, your lambs, your goats, etc., they can survive the winter no problem. You don't have a storage problem there.
Yeah.
And so, and you don't have a seasonality problem. So there's no reason to pig out, so to speak. Right.